Hello, this is Doug Van. Welcome to my first video screencast of the year 2011. And I'm starting it off with kind of an overview of how the web works, how the internet works, and why it works. And I'm going to speak in very broad terms. I'm going to be providing a lot of links, borrowing from screens and pages from various sites that I will give proper credit to. How Stuff Works is a couple of them here, and Wikipedia, of course, and some other sites. So this is not a Drupal-specific screencast. This is a how the internet works. And why am I doing this? I'm actually finding that many people are getting savvy about web development and things of that nature, but they don't have a firm grip on why the internet even works and what some of the acronyms and terminology is. So I'm going to try to keep it very broad, but I will get specific, and I'll provide links that may be helpful to you. So first off, here is howstuffworks.com, an excellent source for many good things. And I love this graphic because it really illustrates a couple of very important points. Here over on the left is you, and way off to the right is the How Stuff Works web server. And this is a great starting point. So here is the internet, okay? And in my case, from my house, I have AT&T U-verse, which goes a standard copper line that goes to my telephone pole, and then they tell me from there it goes fiber all the way back to the AT&T U-verse office, and then from there they have some kind of a high-speed, thick backbone, think of like a water main, and their big, fat, thick pipe of backbone runs all the way to some other thick backbone, which then probably runs fiber to some data center. So over here is some data center. Who knows what state or what country that could be, and there's data centers all over the place. And inside that data center is a web server. And also on How Stuff Works is the how web servers work, and I'll be providing that link. But here's a big rack. Okay, these are servers. In here are just rack. Picture like little entertainment systems. Looks like a tuner, a DVD player, and whatever else. It's just a rack full of nothing but racks of servers in here. And what are those servers doing? They are serving up all these pages. And how are they doing that? Well, there's a couple technologies for that. And now we're kind of zooming in. We're not so 40,000 foot view. You can do that with Linux boxes, open source method. You can do it with Microsoft boxes. And there are actually variations on those two to be found. These are various web server technologies here. This list may be all free, I don't know, but in most cases Linux provides free options. I know there are some occasional commercial options available in the Linux environments that promise better speed and, of course, support if you have issues. But just to back up for a second, you and then the server's way over here. And what's on this server? There are various programs and applications running that may or may not be accessing a database to get some of the content, but at some point it has to push this information over the internet. And what is it pushing? It's pushing HTML. It is pushing HTML, which is hypertext markup language, via, and I'll be providing this link as well in the blog, over the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, HTTP. This is why all your addresses look like http://www.drupal.org. So that's the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, as opposed to FTP, which is File Transfer Protocol, which is what you would use if you wanted to send some files up to a server somewhere. Maybe you're installing the Twitter module on your Drupal site, so you FTP up the file. So don't want to get lost in the minutia, but in broad terms, the HTTP is what you have up in your address bar, typically, when you're accessing a site. And what is the address bar? The address bar comes in your browser. Right now I'm using Chrome, which is made by Google. And they also have something called Chromium, which is very similar. You may be using Firefox, you may be using Internet Explorer, you may be using Safari. And over here on this Wikipedia page, and I will be supplying this link as well, is a little history of the browser. It used to be non-graphical, and then it became graphical. Towards the bottom of this page that you'll be seeing the link to, there's a comparison of web browsers. There are more than you may be aware of. In fact, a lot of your mobile phones now have built-in customized browsers, mobile browsers that are lightweight. And I use my Wii, my Nintendo Wii. I have an Opera browser. I can surf the web on my TV, and that's pretty cool. And it's not as robust as a desktop. In fact, in some cases, it's not as robust as my Droid phone. But browsers are everywhere. So back to our map. Here are you, and here's your browsers on your machine. Maybe you have a Linux machine or a Mac or a Windows machine or whatever you happen to have. Or this could be you on your phone or you on your Wii or whatever device you're using. And your browser is accepting all this HTTP data coming in across the internet. And of course, these multiple paths mean you don't have a line-to-line connection between you and the server. It's bouncing all around, and it may take a split second more or a split second less. And you never know. You never realize how it's going through one city or another city and another state. You never know how it's getting there. You can actually run a test on that if you wanted to. But once we get over here, we're looking at the web server, and again, you'll be looking at this. This is all the different technologies that may be pushing the HTTP data across that box. Now, and if you want to run a server on your own machine, which is pretty popular, there are some options for that. And this is a very limited page here. The metafilter.com page talks about LAMP. That is Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Linux, of course, we all know what Linux is. The W in WAMP is Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP. And over here on MAMP, can you guess what the M is? That would be Mac, Apache, MySQL, PHP. And in these examples, the three things that are different, the one thing that's different is Linux versus Windows versus Mac. And what's in common is Apache. And Apache is what we saw over here as some of the options of how to push HTML pages. And then over back to the M, MySQL is the most popular open source database system. So there are certainly expensive proprietary alternatives, and there are some other free and open source alternatives, Postgres to be one. But that's not everything uses that. If you're using a Dreamweaver or a front page to create static websites, then you're just creating the whole HTML document, the hypertext markup language document, and then your web server just pushes that whole document over and you're done. But if you're using a database as Drupal and Joomla and WordPress and .NET Nuke and all those various platforms use, then some of those are using MySQL, some of those are using other platforms. And the P, of course, is PHP. PHP is, in a very general sense, it's a programming language, and it allows us to write programs on a web server that say, hey, when a person comes in, ask them for their username. When you get that username, send it off to the database and make sure they have the right password. If they do, then give them access to these pages. And if they shouldn't be seeing this kind of data, then never show them this kind of data. So PHP has all your logic rules in there, and all your Drupal is written, of course, in PHP, and Drupal must use PHP. Drupal can work on MySQL, Microsoft SQL, Postgres, MySQL Lite, and of course Drupal would work on Apache or any of the alternatives of Apache. And Drupal would, of course, work on Linux, Windows, or Mac. So that is the broader sense of what is going on. Back to this, let's get into a little bit of minutia here. I wasn't sure I was going to get into this detail, but let's do it. So when you type in dougvan.com on your web browser, on your phone, your Mac, your Linux, your Windows, your Wii, whatever it is, you type in dougvan.com. Your internet service provider is right around here. It's about your closest next connection to the big net here. And your internet service provider, whoever it is, has a lookup table that says dougvan.com is actually this big four octets, like 96.234.170. something. So it would be four numbers no greater than 255 each, and separated by dots. So that's an IP, Internet Protocol address. So your ISP knows that dougvan.com really, that's the kind of the name we use for it. But Drupal.org, WhiteHouse.gov, all these names out there actually resolve into a set of 4 digits separated by dots. And then your internet service provider says, I'm going to take that WhiteHouse.gov or that dougvan.com, and I'm going to go look for those 4 digits. So it goes looking around, and it eventually, in this case, we're going to find How Stuff Works. So the How Stuff Works turns into 4 digits separated by dots, and it finds out that once it traces it down, it finds out the box is over here. Now that address may get into, so it sends that request for HowStuffWorks.com to this IP address, and they may be running a very special box right here that says, okay, what are you looking for? And then it says you're looking for How Stuff Works. Then it sends you off to another box, another rack in this building. So there could be 1,000 machines in this building, and the first door in asks what you're looking for, and it sees the How Stuff Works, and it sends it to the proper box. So that's the IP connection there. And then that web server kicks in and says, okay, what kind of page are they looking for? Well, they're looking for the front page. So it checks its database for what's on the front page and sends that data back across your IP, because it knows where the request came from, and sends it back and sends you your page. Now there's a couple images coming in, there's a bunch of text coming in, there's some data coming in, and it's taking the best path at the given second. One image may come through here, one image may come through here, and the text may come right down the middle, but it all gets there at the proper time, and it builds that page on your browser. So that, in broad terms, is how the internet works. And if you're watching this video and you're kind of auditing it and you think I could have worded that better, or if you think something was worded poorly, by all means, submit a comment and I will be happy to reshoot this. But I think in broad terms, in a 40,000 foot view, I think we've really nailed how the internet works. Now, I did start to make a point about local hosts, and I did not finish that. You can install LAMP if you have a Linux desktop. You can install WAMP if you have a Windows desktop, and you can also install MAMP if you have a Mac desktop. XAMPP, starting with an X, is also an alternative for Windows or Macs. And also at Microsoft.com has their own package installer that installs MySQL, PHP, and uses the Windows IIS web server as opposed to Apache. And that's an option available to you. Also, Acquia.com/download has, or maybe it's downloads, check it singular or plural. It has an option to run a stack installer that is kind of pre-configured for Drupal and optimized for that. So that's very cool. So I would say really, you're better off going with either the Acquia installer or the Windows installer if you're on a Windows machine. But the Acquia installer is great for both, and Windows is only for Windows. So that's very cool. Now, your local host allows you to run a website, a WordPress, a Joomla, a Drupal, a vBulletin, a custom app, whatever you want to run on your own local computer, and no one else in the whole world can see that but you, because you're the only one sitting at your computer. So it is not distributed. If you go back to our map here, you're sitting over here running a local host of maybe a development site that you're going to launch someday, and nobody can get to it. There's no name for it. Maybe I'm sitting over here, and here's my ISP. There's no way for me to get to you. My ISP doesn't know how to send me to you to pull that data out of your machine. You're going to want to get a hosting arrangement with some company. First buy a domain, somedomain.com or .net or .org, and that domain will have an IP address, just like we had the number. And then once you place your files on that web server, then I will be able to go to that domain, and my ISP will know where to go. Maybe your box is up here at the top, and it'll deliver that. Ideally, you don't want to try to send this from your own home. You have a very small connection. It can be done, but I don't recommend it. You could push data across the web from your own home or your own office, but that's not. Trust me, you don't want to be a system maintainer of your own web server across the internet. That's not good. A, it's hard to secure. B, it's slow. It's just a bad idea. So local hosts are cool for fun and playing and development. It's hard to collaborate. You've got a teammate here and a teammate here and a teammate there, and only people that are standing over your shoulder can really be a part of what you're doing. You can't collaborate until you put it out here on the internet and make it more accessible. So, well, there you have it. We hit quite a few topics. And shoot your questions. This is my first blog post for 2011, my first video post, and we'll see where that goes. Thank you so much for your time.